The tariff retreat that made news yesterday and sent the markets skyrocketing again. We mentioned the markets because it's in the context of the markets that that tariff retreat was really prompted. In other words, had the markets not cratered, had the markets not been such a problem, had the bond market particularly not given off the warning signs that it had, I think, there's no telling what the Mad King might have done. But my Lord and Savior, Donald Trump, did come out and decide and announce a 90-day pause. We had that for you right as the show was beginning yesterday, actually. And with that pause, we had a commensurate rise in the market, this insane one-day run-up in the market that is being championed by everyone who is on the right. They're in the Fox News channel, for example, Mediaverse, and they're talking about what a genius my Lord and Savior Donald Trump is. And he is, of course, a genius, given those great powers as he is divine. But the reality is that when you've pummeled the markets tremendously over the course of a week, remember, the markets lost about 9%, all right? Then the one-day run-up, which is unprecedented, doesn't even get you back to even. So as you're talking about all of this incredible genius that's reflected in this one-day run-up, and oh my God, it was a negotiating position, and isn't Donald Trump brilliant and courageous? Okay, it just is so obviously spin. But let's see some of that spin and then really discuss what's happening. That is a live feed of the S&P right now, and the S&P is down about 3%. Is that right, Albert? Is that what I'm seeing? I can't quite see it, but somewhere in that neighborhood. Yeah, looks like 3.5%. All right, let's kick things off. And again, there'll be some spin in here and the announcement, but we'll start with I believe the announcement. Isn't that what we're starting with? This is Donald Trump yesterday.
Jumping a little bit out of line. They were getting yippy, they were getting a little bit yippy, a little bit afraid, unlike these champions, because we have a big job to do. No other president would have done what I did. No other president. I know the presidents, they wouldn't have done it. And it had to be done.
Was it the bond markets that persuaded you to reverse
course? I
course?
was watching the bond market. The bond market is very tricky. I was watching it, but if you look at it now, it's beautiful. The bond market right now is beautiful. But yeah, I saw last night where people were getting a little queasy.
So here's why this is important. The bond market reflects the 10-year Treasury reflects the confidence that the rest of the world has in America's economy and America in general. It's like the safest buy you can make in the world. And yesterday, what Trump was noticing, and all of his economic advisors and anybody who knows anything about markets was noticing, is, there's a sell-off in the bond market, the Treasury bond, meaning there could be any number of reasons for this, but one certainly believable scenario is, breaking news, America isn't what it used to be, and the Mad King could do anything, and this isn't the great safe buy it used to be. And then that 10-year Treasury, the interest rate on it went up because they're trying to get more, if you will, entities buying those treasuries. And sadly, that means the United States of America has to pay out a bigger interest rate. So that increases the debt of America. All right. And so the bond market was key in all of this. Run the next, if you would, Albert. This is Bessent, who, again, knows better. This guy, Bessent, he's the Treasury Secretary. He knows better, but he's out there spinning like a top what's going on with this. And, Donald Trump is so brilliant. He's so courageous. It would take an incredible president, unlike anyone we've ever seen, to do something like this. Go ahead, Albert.
But I'm saying that China has escalated, and President Trump responded very courageously to that, and we are going to work on a solution with our trading partners.
And if I could just, excuse me, Raquel, if I could just add to what the secretary said. Many of you
This
in the
is
media
Levitt, Carolyn Levitt.
clearly missed the art of the deal. You clearly failed to see what President Trump is doing here. You tried to say that the rest of the world would be moved closer to China when in fact we've seen the opposite effect. The entire world is calling the United States of America, not China, because they need our markets, they need our consumers, and they need this president in the Oval Office to talk to them. And that's exactly why more than 75 countries have called, because the United States of America is the best place in the world to do business. And as the president has shown great courage, as the secretary has said, in choosing to retaliate against China even higher. Elena, go ahead.
America great, courage, Trump. Right, okay, that's good. Thank you, Albert. Give me a T, give me an R, give me a U. I mean, she's an incredible cheerleader for Trump. And yeah, I think that can go without comment, except for the fact that, again, you have a Treasury Secretary that's out there spinning for Trump. He knows much better. This is profoundly, to call it flawed economic policy is to be kind. We all know, even those of us who are not economists know, that there's an insanity to all of this. And the tariff, the death grip that he has on tariffs is something that is inexplicable. Go ahead, Albert. Run. This is Stephen Moore, I think. Go ahead, run a little Stephen Moore.
Co-founder and
This guy's
co-author of
truly
the
crazy.
Trump Economic Miracle. Steve Moore joins us now.
He wrote a book called The
discuss
Trump Economic
a little bit
Miracle.
of a miracle today, Steve, but a miracle by design. And I know that you were one of the ones in the camp that said we should have seen the tax cuts first and the tariffs later. Didn't exactly work that way. I personally think now that this is played out, that the tariff chaos that it caused was meant to sort of drive those tax cuts, and it looks like it's working.
Sure it was.
How do you feel about things as they're unfolding?
No, it was a great day. I mean, this is the biggest point increase in the Dow Jones in American history. So how can I stop from smiling?
Following the biggest
it's
drop.
Not over.
I
mean, these are the first skirmishes, and these terrorist debates will go on for perhaps many, many more months. But look, Trump is just a shrewd negotiator, and you're right. I'm not the biggest fan of these tariffs, and the president knows that. And but I do believe in his ability to get a good deal for the United States. And I think that's exactly how this is going to turn out. The other kind of interesting dynamic that's going on here, I think what Trump is trying to do, and if he is, I think he's exactly right. And you just alluded to this. He's trying to isolate the worst actor in the world, which is China. They are our enemy. They are like Japan circa 1937. And
so the first thing, the blanket tariffs
China,
is just
and we need to have our allies in Europe and Japan and Mexico and Canada all teaming up against China.
And there's no way to have those allies on your side doing that more than by smack talking them and tariffing them.
Who our real allies are in the course of the next few weeks and months.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. He again, and then he points to the bond. In fact, go ahead, play this for a second, because this is really what happened
to what was going on in the Treasury market, because
the Treasury
that
market. That's what really
play into this decision of it's always about the why now. It was the sell-off in the last 3 days, the lockup overnight, and particularly in the 30-year. But the 10-year, the yield or the interest that we pay and that Americans pay on, say, a mortgage was soaring unexpectedly. And the 10-year yield still wound up on the day. So the treasuries fell. It was up in one day. That had to play into the decision of why to pause now, because that couldn't continue. Selling in treasuries and skyrocketing yields.
Well, Dagan, you're 100% right.
Skyrocketing yields
when I
means
saw
skyrocketing
that
interest
chart
rates, right?
this morning, and I saw how high those rates had gone up on the 10-year Treasury, I was getting very nervous. And it actually fell a little bit today as the stock market was going up, and that's a good sign. And that means people were getting into buying stock and not selling these treasuries. I think some of this was engineered by China.
That's good. I again, just to be clear, the treasuries are like loaning money to somebody who needs it, and they've always been solid, and so we loan them money, right? And so they offer us a small interest rate just for the favor of loaning them money. Then they come back to us and they want more money. The person in this case is America, and They say no problem because they're the most. We say no problem because they're the most solid person to loan money. They always, they're really solid. They've got a good job and all of that kind of thing. And then we notice that they are not showing up to work, that they are drunk all the time. It seems they've been spotted hanging around with some questionable figures. They might be into some illegal stuff. And now they come back to us for a loan again. And now we say, hey, I don't have the confidence in you, America, that I used to have. So you're going to have to give me a higher rate. And that's what happened yesterday on those T-bills. The 10-year treasuries, they had to offer a higher rate because people were dumping them. When I say people, again, it could be entities. In fact, there is even a theory that China was dumping them. China holds a lot of our debt. This is the other thing. There's a whole world. We can talk to the economist bottom of the hour about this. But when Trump saw that, or when his people saw that, I don't know to what extent Trump understands any of this, his people or he realized, wow, we're in real trouble. I mean, and then Jamie Dimon showing up on Fox News Channel yesterday with Maria Bartiromo, and he predicted a recession and possibly even a depression as a result of this. I think that panicked Trump as well. And I think that's based on Wall Street Journal reporting and other reporting around what went into this.
So Trump was asked how he came to change his mind. And he said, I've been kicking it around with Basent and Lutnick over the last couple of days. And then he said on social media, I think it probably came together. And he said early yesterday morning, fairly early this morning, just wrote it up. He said, we didn't have access to lawyers. We just wrote it up from our hearts, right? It was written from the heart. And I think it was well written too, but it was written from the heart. It was written as something that I think was very positive for the world and for us. We don't want to hurt countries that don't need to be hurt. But what that shows me is that they have no plan.
Oh, that's
they didn't
so true.
Clear anything with lawyers. They didn't do anything ahead of time. The morning of, he writes it up from the heart, and that's the way it is. There's no, real well thought out anything that goes into this, and you can see that's why it causes chaos.
Exactly. I think that's exactly right. And I think when he says we didn't have any lawyers involved or whatever, there might be some truth to that. When he says it's a great time to buy, and then he announces a pause, and then, as you've just reported, he was kicking a pause around with his people, it makes you wonder if there wasn't a serious amount of market manipulation going on. I mean, it really opened the door to the kind of corruption that I think we've seen this administration, and already in Washington, there are many examples of insider trading of a sort. And the Marjorie Taylor Greene thing made big news, as you know, right before the tariffs were imposed. She dumped a lot of stock. Then, she made, I think, $750,000 in a transaction just in the last week or so. So in any case, I think you're right when Kim is talking about the fact that, Trump just going from his gut and talking to people, he's allowing for and opening the door to the kind of corruption that is just, I think, takes the normal, everyday Washington corruption to another level. So, again,
Adam Schiff is calling now for an insider trading investigation into the Trump administration. He said that that whole thing you just mentioned, it's a great day to buy DJT, that post that he made. It's DJT, also the ticker symbol for his company. And so Schiff says he and other Democrats have sent a letter to the White House asking if anyone in or around the administration made any financial transactions knowing that the president was going to pause those tariffs.
Well, even before he was sworn in with that meme coin, that really opened the door to self-dealing of all sorts. It's a way to money the president, for Trump to enrich himself. And it's the easiest way to pay him off is through the meme coin. And so there is something of a trail of breadcrumbs to some, to be polite, some ethical problems with the way things have been done. But there is no more cop on the beat. I mean, they've gotten rid of a lot of the inspectors general, as you know, but they've also gotten rid of other systems within government that would lead to an investigation. Specifically, Pam Bondi is the attorney general, and she is not going to initiate or allow the initiation of any serious investigation from the Justice Department on insider trading.
Did they take a pickaxe to the SEC yet?
They have taken some moves against the SEC and the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission. In this, but you're right, it would be SEC probably in this case. This is really great that we can talk to these lawyers and economists at the bottom of the hour, and they can speak to a little bit of this. But the Securities and Exchange Commission did not immediately respond to a request for comment. And the ethics investigator, is it Painter? Is that, I forget his first name. Richard, maybe it is it? He's talked about the fact that there's a scenario here that could expose the president to accusations that he engaged in market manipulation. Yeah, Richard Painter. He's the ethics lawyer for former President George W. Bush. He teaches government ethics and security regulation at University of Minnesota's law school. So he's someone that you see on television occasionally, and he's weighed in on this. To me, there are just all sorts of opportunities for self-dealing here. All kinds of opportunities. And leaving aside the completely rudderless ship that is sailing toward the horizon with tariffs being thrown overboard and then onboarded in a completely haphazard manner. Kim's boyfriend, Chris Cuomo, was on, and here is a little Chris Cuomo for Kim.
The tariff gambit was always going to be, okay? How they did this was a closely held move, and now we know why. Because he knows he was going to meet resistance. He didn't even know that graph till he read it at that press conference. What likely happened here is Trump was pushing tariffs because he believes in the optics, no matter the economics. They make him look strong. He is fighting back. He is doing to them as they do to us. And that's why he did this. And as with everything else he does, if he's going to do it, he wants it to be the biggest, the most, the best. And that's why it's this crazy list and exaggerated notions of the tariffs. He didn't really consult the better business minds around him, which is why Musk may not be the only close advisor to leave because of this. Be aware. He also didn't warn the other countries. He also didn't warn us. So the markets cratered. Now his guys are trying, after the fact, to architect a plan. And they're leaning into helping the base, even if it sounds like they're bogarting the idea from Bernie. But just
all right, thank you, Albert.
Is the lead.
The thing to note here is you can't have it both ways. If they really were huddling and this was all part of a plan and a negotiation tactic, and it was all leverage that the Trump administration had thought out ahead of time, and this is part of his genius, then it really opens the door to insider trading. So you're telling me you're going to make the announcement that you're going to make these across-the-board reciprocal tariffs that reflect an insane mathematics that no one can really explain, including you, the President of the United States. And you're going to sit with that and let the markets do what they do. And then you're going to, as a negotiating tactic, wait till everybody, 75 different countries, call the 1-800 let's make a deal number at the White House. And then you're going to announce a pause. And when you announce the pause, you know that the markets will rebound. The world markets rebounded. That, again, sets the table for all sorts of self-dealing and insider trading. This is leaving aside the payoffs associated with the deal itself that you want to make with individual countries. So I'm sorry. I think it's a pay-to-play administration, and I think there are numerous opportunities that they set up for self-enrichment, way more than they had set up during the first Trump term. And now what you're seeing on television from his functionaries, from his surrogates, is what a genius he is and how this is all part of the plan. Now today, just as we follow the markets are all down. We saw 3.5% off the S&P. I don't know what's happening on the Dow, but it's off over, I think, 12 or 1,300 points. So, I mean, people are still in this place. When I say people, I'm talking about business leaders as well as regular American citizens, and then the rest of the world. They're in a place where we don't really know what's going to happen. We don't know what the Mad King will do. And because of that, and because there's no coherent strategy articulated or even reflected in any of his dispositions toward tariffs and any other economic policy, we pull back. And so business leaders don't invest. They don't invest in factory build out. They don't invest in hiring. They're actually shedding many of their employees. I was reading a piece yesterday, 5 different CEOs talking about the fact that they've actually had to cut back employees because they're not sure what's going to happen. And so for a team, the Trump team that, champions sort of the expansionist view of this Trump strategy, onshoring all of this business, we know it's ridiculous, but the short-term damage is going to be substantial, and not only to the overall economy, but to these businesses that he cares so much about. And the last thing I'll say is about the farmers. Trump talks about the farmers all the time. Love my farmers. Farmers are great. Well, talk to the farmers. See how they feel. They just lost one of their great trading partners, China. A lot of our produce goes to China. A lot of our agricultural goods goes to China. It's not going there now. And these farmers, who already are on a pretty slim margin, are looking at some pretty dark days. Now, what Trump will do, I'm sure, is what he did during his first term, which is bail those farmers out. Mm-hmm. He'll bail them out with that tariff money. So if you look at the first Trump term, those, again, farmers damaged by tariff policy, damaged by flawed Trump economic policy, they were reimbursed for their losses by the government out of the tariff revenue. They'll have to do the same thing here. But farmers don't want to farm, grow things, and just have it die on the vine or have bushels go nowhere and just get checks from the government. They have pride in what they do. And so the idea somehow that the farming community is okay with just getting a subsidy check from the government because of the tariffs, that's not what farming is about. That's not what American farmers want. So I think he's going to have a conversation with the agricultural communities. A lot of them are here in California to really figure out how to handle that. But they're going to take a big hit, and they're already taking it, and they're pushing back through their legislators, who, of course, have surrendered completely their power to the chief executive. But that's where we are on this.
Can I point out that there's more tariffs coming, that this isn't the end of it, that there's a whole nother thing that Trump is taking aim at, something that President Biden tried to make less expensive for people, and that Trump seems to be hell-bent on making more expensive.
Yeah, pharmaceuticals is what Kim is talking about. Tariffs on pharmaceuticals. And he is talking about imposing these tariffs on pharmaceuticals, quote, very shortly. He was announcing this yesterday. It's a little awkward in the middle of the rest of this tariff mess before the National Republican Congressional Committee. Remember, that was where he was talking about everybody in the world is kissing my ass. They all want to make a deal with. In the middle of all of that, of his peacocking and kind of drinking in the moment, he talked about the fact that pharmaceuticals exempt from his first round of tariffs will be subject to the next round. And
that's life and death for people.
Sure. Most drugs are produced, at least in part, outside the United States. And China, India, Europe, major players in that supply chain of pharmaceuticals. So we haven't got any other details on this, but as Kim mentioned, as part of the, the infrastructure plan that Biden had put through, that huge infrastructure bill, you had the federal government now able to negotiate prices down on I think it's 10 different drugs. That has been rolled back already by executive order from Donald Trump, and now he's saying he wants to tariff these pharmaceuticals that come in from overseas. Now, you can say, well, Mark, I mean, we should have these things done domestically because what if there's a problem like the COVID crisis and we need pharmaceuticals here in this country domestically? I get it. But the supply chain is such and so well established that the time it would take to onshore all of these pharmaceutical factories and the production elements necessary to get domestic production in pharmaceuticals during that time, as Kim says, it'll be a life and death thing for so many Americans.
What do? People already are saying that they have fewer or less access to medical care and that they're having to make decisions between daily necessities or rent or mortgage or what have you, and letting their medication go. And so how does this help that?
Yeah, in a country where already, as Kim is sort of noting, you can be driven to bankruptcy because of the healthcare needs of you or your family. This is one more reflection of the fact that this president and this administration doesn't really care about the everyman, even as they pitch themselves as populists, you know. But he has articulated, this is it. Pharmaceuticals are next.
Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell, you'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.